Hello viewers and welcome to X Rebirth. I'm your host Pew Pew Choo Choo and we are starting a new Let's Play series today. So anyhow, we will be taking a look at the latest iteration of the X series of games here, and what these games are is that, well, they're fairly inspired by older space flight sim games, if I can call them that, and what these games essentially aim to do is that they give a player a universe to really play around in, and you'll see that in a bit here that the game has a fairly minimal plot, although inside this particular game it seems to have a lot more than the other X titles. But the main focus of these games is that there's definitely a lot to do, and what I mean by that is that the game has a really fully, well, the previous iterations have always had a really fleshed out system where you can either do a combat playthrough, or you can do a sort of a merchant playthrough, and what I mean by that is you can do a lot of different things inside the game. You can fight, you can trade, and you can also explore, and you can do a ton of interesting stuff. So with that kind of said, I want to start off the game right away, and I think we'll just try to demonstrate everything as best as we can, really go from there. One thing I should tell you guys is that these games do start off fairly slowly, and what I mean by that is that there's a lot of like fluff and a lot of like techno babble stuff floating around. So with that kind of said, what I'm going to do here is that there is an opening cutscene. Ironically, like this particular game, X Rebirth, is supposed to be one of the more well, the developers have aimed to make a more newbie friendly game of sorts for people, right? But the problem with that is that it starts off with a lot of stuff that happens inside the previous games that you really don't need to know.
Yes, I hear you.
I've got system failures. I need to dock.
And we'll just
I think there's a docking port here, but I'm not sure if it's working.
You'd better be sure. I'm coming in hot.
So I've skipped the opening cutscene here, and we'll play that later on. I mean, by the time you guys view it, it'll probably be in the second or third portion. But I'll talk a little bit more about that after we go through this this portion right here.
Are you all right?
Yeah, I'll be fine. Thanks.
How'd you end up in that pod?
I was attacked in the highway. It happened so fast. They could still be nearby.
I checked. You were the only ship out there. We can head for the nearest station, but it'll take a while. This ship's not in the best shape.
If they come after me, then we're in trouble. Let me take a look.
Alright, there we go. So, yeah, that opening cutscene, I think it's like a 5-minute, like, cutscene, and it's depicted as a encyclopedia about the ship that you're in and what the previous game's events is about, and it really isn't all too helpful. So I figured we might as well skip that and come back to that later on, and I can probably talk about the storylines of the games better than its actual description. But anyhow, one of the new features for this particular games is that despite being a spaceship simulator, you can actually go through all of the environments here on your little boat. And you can see there's a little washroom, there's a little loading bay and stuff and such like that. It's actually not that big of a ship, but it's there. And you can also go onto stations, which is one of the newer points here. So anyhow, let's go to the meat.
If this is some elaborate plot to steal my ship, you should have waited until I finished repairs.
You're not kidding. This thing's a mess.
You an engineer?
Technician. I work for the Heart of Albion, performing safety checks for working areas, ships, production lines, that kind of thing. Yisha Terran.
Reno Tani.
And if I'm not mistaken, this is the Pride of Albion.
You know your ship. I found it dumped not too far from here. I've been trying to restore it. And some joker thought it'd be funny to recode its ID to Albion's skunk.
I should probably let my people know I'm all right.
Can't help you there. I was out here looking for a replacement high-gain transmitter. It's probably best if we head to some station. We'll get going after I warm up the engines a bit.
Okay. So, I mean, the game starts off fairly slowly. The cutscene doesn't really talk much about it, but in the traditional like fashion of these games, you really start off with nothing and you really work your way up from there. So I mean, the initial plot here is that we effectively play as a scavenger, as a sort of salvager person.
Sorry about that. She does that sometimes.
Let's see what
it's
this
only
is all
some
about.
PMC ships exiting the highway. Almost ready.
Did you know
There we
that your
go.
boost engines are disabled?
Yeah, they've never worked. Something to do with...
Hold on. Woo!
There we go. So as I was saying, it's yeah, you pretty much start off with nothing, and you really have to work your way up here.
Those were Plutarch security ships. You don't just pull off a burn like that in their faces.
Relax, they won't catch up for a while. Look, I've got a friend on a station near here. Get me there and we'll get most of your systems back online. Check this out. Try that. Maneuvering thrusters should be more responsive now.
Okay, now I think all like the navigation systems are on, so we have full control over our ship. And we also have the boost system, which is fairly useful. So what I was talking about? What was I talking about? Oh, right, the ship and the storyline and all.
Half of your systems were in safe mode. Did she get into a fight?
She's been like this since I found her. How about we get to that station?
So yeah, I mean, currently we really don't have anything. In the last X game, which I played, which was X3AP, which was Albion Prelude. Typically, I mean, you were given like a combat ship, a combat like fighter, and then the game would the older games, they didn't really have this interior view, so you would essentially like just control. You would see like the little front mast of your ship, and that's about it. And well, they've always just sort of thrown the player into the world with pretty much nothing else except for one ship and a little mini dialogue sequence where they talk about the very basics of how to use your ship, how to fight, and a few enemies, and really just give you like a small directional hint, like that. But anyhow, inside this game, they're trying to make it a lot more user-friendly, and one of the things that they have here is that there's a fully fleshed out tutorial now, and well, it's decent for the most part, although it kind of reminds me of this one game
it's not
in
exactly
particular.
a model of comfort, but it's welcoming enough.
Yeah, so they've tried to make the series a little more user friendly by giving you a tutorial as to like how to play the game. And beforehand, it was sort of just like, here, have this ship and do whatever you like. The only problem with it is that it will only tell you things once, and then if you miss the tooltip that comes up, you can never really recover from that. So yeah, with that kind of said, I guess I'll give you guys a tutorial of sorts here. So our only goal here is to really dock with the station, go from there, and this is the little docking bay. You can ram it, and there's no penalties to actually crashing into things with this game. But what you do to dock is that you actually double click on it, and then you just click dock like that.
Requesting permission to dock.
I mean, I was under the impression that you just sort of tried to crash into the little dome thing for the longest time.
Encyclopedia. Map. Badlands Mining Colony. The Badlands Mining Colony is one of the oldest mining facilities in Albion. Initially a high-yield but sizable rock, it was colonized by the Plutarch Mining Corporation in the year 2942. Until Albion became isolated from the rest of the universe due to the Great Shutdown, it served as the unofficial capital.
Okay. So I mean, for the first portion of the game,
you want me to patch up this old junker for free?
It's nothing too major, and I think I've earned a few favors.
You've got one favor. You're more trouble than you're worth. Okay, guy, I'll get your ship into a decent state. That includes the weapons, so you'd best keep quiet about where you got them from. There are some components around here I could use. Look around for them while I get set up.
I'll leave you boys to it.
Okay. So as I was saying, I mean, the intro cutscene for the game is actually like one of those encyclopedia entries, but it's horrifically long, and it honestly doesn't say very much. So anyhow, this is the tutorial as to how we control the movements on the stations, and we get a little platform here really, and all we're really supposed to do is just check out how we interact with the environment. Fairly basic, you know, you press F on things, and you press F on other things, and you click through a few dialogues, and things happen really. So this engineer person, they wanted us to pick something up for them, so we'll do that.
We'd better do it right. You should get on board and prepare to give a test run.
Yeah, we'll do that after we do this dialogue option. What can you tell me about that person that we have on our
That
ship?
Yisha girl, she's nice and all, but Don't expect things to be simple with her around.
She told me she was with the Heart of Albion. Sounds pretty respectable.
Sure, but the Heart of Albion aren't the PMC's best friends, are they? I say spend the time in her world. Heart of Albion will either get you into charity work or cyber terrorism. Never a dull day.
Thanks for the help.
Alright, so now we can return to the ship immediately, but there's also a few things to explore here. The vast majority of it is really just merchants, and as you can see here, there's a few other NPCs that we can talk to. Let's actually talk to this guy. Let's see what he has to say.
Hello, mate.
And the dialogue options for these guys will be fairly similar. I mean, where can I find, say, where can I find a ship
I'd love
dealer?
to help, but that one's beyond me.
Well, it doesn't look like he knows. So most of these guys on these stations, they'll
I don't
typically
have all
offer some sort of like job or some sort of
Nice
trade
chat.
good. But
Not.
for these little
Those
trade,
scumbag
for
lizards
this
make
little
my
tutorial, there's
blood
not really
boil.
that many people. The other thing that you can do is that on these stations, there's typically a lot of these like little red crates, and they typically have a lot of stuff here. Now I realize that like the menus for this game, they seem to be in like disproportionate to the resolution of the screen. So I mean, currently we're just picking up a whole bunch of trade goods, like some farming equipment, some mining equipment, some mineral fertilizer from the looks of it. And well, it's just sort of like a mini game of sorts where you can just kind of pick things up on these station sections over here, and we'll just pick them up. Nobody seems to really care about it, and we can just leave like that. So get in here, use that little door panel, and that will put us back into the driver's seat, and we can go from here. Alright, so let's see what is next.
Systems are looking good. Weapons are working. Let's give the targeting system a run through.
Alright, so, suppose it will be time for me to talk about, like, general navigation and how you really move from here.
Computer database.
Now
So
shut up, Betty.
you use your your standard VASD keys to move around. You use your lean buttons, meaning Q and E, to rotate your ship like that, and you use X and Z to speed up and slow down. Use tab to turbo.
Let's check that the weapons work.
So let's do the weapons section here. Let's fly around here, just get into a position where we can sort of shoot at these asteroids
It'll
and
be faster to
just
use
fire
the
at them.
light.
Yeah, so we can fire our guns using the right mouse button. We can just kind of hold that down until the gun overheats. And you'll see here, ooh, boom.
It's a shame you don't have a cap ship with collector drones. The minerals in these rocks are used in many industries.
It is a shame that we do not, but oh well. Let's see. We also have a mining laser equipped, so we can do
So,
some
did you manage to
mining here and
contact
there.
anyone?
Yeah, they know I'm okay. I'd hate to be a bother, but could you take me to them? It's not far from here.
And let's see, the only option that we really have
Given
is
how
to
well the skunk is
accept.
performing, it's the least I can do.
Thanks. I'll mark the location in your guidance system. We'll be meeting with the Heart of Albion ship to pick me up.
Okay, let's go and do that.
So, what do you do for a living?
Nothing stable. The odd job here and there. More to keep me busy than make money.
A freelancer, then. Not a bad job if you can find enough work.
My father worked for Plutarch Mining Corporation for many years. Seeing how stressed he became, I don't think corporate life is for me. He's gone now, but he left me enough that I can choose what I want to do.
If you want to spend your time restoring old ships, you've found it.
And like I said, you really don't start off with very much at the beginning. You kind of start off as nobody. And so how these like little green warp areas work is that inside the previous games you used to have jump gates that would take you from one place to another, to really give you like a full open world game. They've kind of removed the old system where you had to just go through jump gates, and the jump gates would just effectively they would link
There's a
map
highway
after
crossing.
map,
You
right?
should fly over to the
Now
highway
the map is I believe it is fully accessible from your ship, so you don't have to go through any sort of like loading sequence to get from one place to another. And to replace those gates where you can jump from sector to sector, now they have these space highways, as I like to call them, and they really just take you from one place around the map to another place really rather fast like that. And there are multiple ones. There's a little mini game that you can play throughout these, where you just try to tailgate on faster ships, and you sort of gain like a speed boost like that. So for example, right now I'm tailing this guy, and as soon as we leave off of him, you see here that the little progress bar towards the objective is actually advancing much slower, but if we tail somebody faster than us, we go much faster. Kind of implies that it's a good thing to do this, to just tailgate people. But you know what, whatever works. I mean, this should pluck us down in another location. Let's see what else we're supposed to do.
Auspicious excavation.
So yeah, the game is very, very pretty in the space sections, although on the stations inside the ship it's not all too much. It's not all that great, but I mean it's still pretty decent. Really, really immersive with the ship HUD and all. So let's see, we are supposed to go out into that gas cloud, or dust cloud really, and we're supposed to find some sort of ship belonging to one of the factions inside the game. So let's do that. Let's turbo our way over there. So we'll use what is effectively the sprint for our ship
That's
to
Borman's
get
ship
through
over
here.
there. They'll be
There we
This is
go.
Falk Borman to the Albion Skunk. I take it you have Yisha Terran on board?
This is Ren Otani. Yes, she's here.
Should we come in to dock?
I'm sorry, Yisha, but we can't risk it at the moment. Captain Otani, I'm transferring some credits to your account as we speak. I hate to be so abrupt, but time is short, and bringing Yisha on board could potentially put her and others in danger.
I'm sorry, but I have to say, I'm confused. You want her to stay here?
I'm sure Yisha can elaborate. She is currently better off with you than with us. Consider this a passenger transport job, Captain Otani. A well-paid one at that. We'll be in contact when this all blows over.
So as you can probably
What?
tell, the
I
ships are
didn't know he
fairly
was going to do that.
decent.
So now what?
You're the captain. What would you normally do?
I have a freighter parked up not too far away. How about we head there and you explain what this is all about?
Alright, so like, yeah, so the ships are fairly interactable. Looks like that one just jumped away. So you can, you know, with some of the smaller ships like these ones, you can actually go inside some of the bigger ones.
something to do with the constant trouble Heart of Albion is getting into with Plutarch.
We do what we can. Plutarch has operations you wouldn't believe existed. What I do is find the evidence and get it to Borman.
Starting to think Borman didn't pay me enough.
Maybe the less you know. Many in Heart of Albion are old Argon military veterans. They're pretty much the last of the Argon Federation in Albion.
And then Plutarch came to power after the gate shut down. You should be happy Plutarch even tolerates your group.
Alright, so, assuming my game didn't freeze up
I'd like
here,
to
there
see
we go.
them try and shut us down.
Alright, so like, as you can probably tell, there are like a few established factions inside the game that are present, and you can trade with these factions, and you used to be able to invade their territory, and it was actually a major plot thing where you could actually join up with a space nation or empire of sorts, and you could actually participate inside like the factions' wars with each other, right? So that's one thing. So yeah, you can interact with these factions, and they typically will have like a rating to and against you. So you see here that we are apparently neutral with these guys, and we're apparently the enemy of whoever owns this consumer compact cell thing, and that's kind of the reason why it's red. But anyhow, yeah, there is a factional system inside the game. I think the plot really starts off from here, and what let's see, don't want to crash into the station. The plot is really revolving, well, currently it revolves around these two factions, the Heart of Albion and the PMC organization, which I believe controls the vast majority of some of these stations and stuff and such like that. So, the general gist of the storyline, and I feel like this makes it a lot clearer than the actual cutscene, but in the previous games there were a few different factions, a few of them alien and one human faction, the people of the Argon Federation, I believe, and they were well, that is one large, whatever thing this is that we are traveling in front of or behind of. So yeah, there was the Argon Federation. That was the majority of the human people race really out here, and there was also the Terran Federation. But how the game really